there was research that was done, I think, just before the pandemic that showed that 42% of American households and 42% of American households, the female partner is out earning the male partner.
Yeah.
And so we've entered into a space where in almost half of American households, the woman is the primary breadwinner.
Wow.
And so roles have shifted, financial, the way that things look within the household has shifted. But I think our capacity to have the conversations in terms of the role that stress plays, I think it plays a role in many different things. I'm going to just approach this by breaking down what actually happens within our body, because I think
Great.
I didn't actually know this. I don't think most people actually know this. You have two branches to your autonomic nervous system. You have your sympathetic and your parasympathetic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your sympathetic is like the gas pedal.
Yeah.
So that's what happens when you're getting stuff done, when you're working out. It's tied to your fight, flight, or freeze response. So when conflict happens or you feel more stressed out, you're in this state, and your body has a very specific response when you're in that sympathetic response state, right? So your breath per minute goes up. So you're actually breathing faster. Your heart rate goes up,
Mm-hmm.
right? So your body's working a little bit harder. Your body's releasing more cortisol, more adrenaline,
Mm-hmm.
depending on how stressed that you actually are. And then on the other side of the spectrum is your parasympathetic, which is like the brake pedal, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's responsible for rest, digest, being calm, feeling peaceful, etc. Interesting fact that most people don't know is that in order for a man to be aroused, in order for a man to get an erection, he has to be in a parasympathetic dominant state within his nervous system. So he actually has to be in a more restful, more calm, digestive state in order to get aroused. So a lot of the non-medical erectile dysfunction problems that happen, a lot of the non-medical premature ejaculation challenges that men face is not because there's something physically going wrong besides the fact that they can't get out of that stress state.
Uh-huh.
They literally cannot move their body out
Yeah.
of this place of their breath is going really fast, their heart rate is elevated, their body's releasing cortisol, stress hormones, adrenaline, etc. And they
And it
can't
gets
move.
worse too. The more time you spend in sympathetic, the harder it is to get into parasympathetic, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So your body sort of acclimatizes to this like
Yeah.
go, 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 maxed out, always on state.
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes hard for a man to feel regulated, to feel grounded, right? There's a lot of terms that get thrown around out there, but it becomes hard for a man's body and mind to move out of this stress state and into a relaxed state.
Mm-hmm.
So what do? Right? We turn to things like alcohol, which is a suppressant.
Mm-hmm.
We turn to things like weed, which is supposed to help us calm down. Well, there's a lot of research now coming out that if you're a chronic user, which is more than twice a week of smoking weed, that over a period of time, that can actually increase your level of stress and anxiety, can actually deregulate your body and your nervous system even more so. Andrew Huberman has some great research on that.
Wow.
And so we turn to porn, right? Porn is probably the number one way that men try to regulate their nervous system, to feel relaxed, to feel calm. Because after you watch porn, after you ejaculate, a man's body will actually release things like dopamine, so you feel good, oxytocin, the bonding chemical, and then something called prolactin, which in women is responsible for something very different. But for men, it's actually a calming down agent. Oh. So it's a neurochemical that gets released and says to a male body, you should calm down, you should relax a little bit. So it's why a lot of men, after getting off, they feel a little bit sleepy, they feel tired, their body moves into this very like restful state, right? So this level of stress occupying this territory causes us to largely feel more insecure, struggle to make more concrete decisions, create direction, vision for our life, have challenging conversations, right? Go through conflict in a healthy way, which is incredibly important for any relationship, right? The number one thing that any relationship needs to do is to get through conflict in a healthy, positive way to come out the other side okay. It's what we need as human beings. And so all of these things become more challenging, right? Focusing on your task, it can, increase ADHD. So stress is a huge challenge for a lot of people. And so and the problem is that we live in a society that prioritizes medication versus meditation,
Well, I
right?
mean,
And
shoot,
so,
people use marijuana for medication to like go to
right,
sleep.
right. Yeah. And, I think, again, the literature on that is not great, like, because the THC content, and we probably don't need to go down this path too much, but because the
Yeah.
THC content has been like wildly dialed up,
Right.
for a lot of people over time, what will start to happen is that it actually replaces, it binds with a CB1 receptor in your brain, which is the primary receptor to your nervous system. And so it actually starts to replace your body's natural process of regulating. And so you start to create this little bit of a dependency on it to feel like you're calm and grounded and de-stressed. And that can feel good for a while. But for the majority of people, what will start to happen is, if they're using more than twice a week for a prolonged period of time, is that will wear off, and they'll actually start to feel more anxious and
If you
more
don't
panicked,
use it, you
especially if you don't
lose
use
it.
it. Right. If you don't use it, you lose it. That's good. That's good.
What are the good releases? What can a man do for relief instead of turning to something like porn, instead of turning to alcohol, instead of turning to cheating, instead of turning to overreacting to things? Like, instead of doing those things, or avoiding, leaving the home, whatever that may be, what are healthy forms of relief or release?
So there are some very basic things, right? There's some very basic things. I think, if you if you're somebody that listens to podcasts quite a bit, you've probably heard this big push on most health people's podcasts to cold immersion, right? To sort of like cold therapy, to saunas, to breath work. And there's a reason for that. Your breath is the primary um, the primary thing that can actually impact the dial between your stressed part of your nervous system and your relaxed part of your nervous system, right? So if you're really stressed out, you're very anxious, because there's almost no difference from a neurological stance between stress and anxiety. They're almost the same neurologically, right? In terms of the chemicals that get released and how your nervous system is operating, et cetera. So your breath is the pathway that can help you move out of that stress state. So if you use very specific breathing exercises, right? One of them is called the box breath, which has been very popularized, right? So you inhale for a count of 4, you pause for a count of 4, you exhale for a count of 4, and you pause for a count of 4. And you do that box cycle for about 5 minutes. And when you do that, you're regulating your breath cycle to such a degree where you're sending a signal to your heart to slow down. So as you regulate your breath, your body starts to naturally relax, your heart rate starts to naturally decrease, and then your brain starts to reduce the amount of stress chemicals that it's going to be emitting out into your system. That's a good one. Another breath cycle that has been researched time and time again to help with HRV, and it's specifically given to people with PTSD and that people that are prone to panic attacks, is inhaling through the nose for a count of 4, pausing for a count of 2, and then exhaling out the mouth for a count of 6 and pausing for 2. And so you do that cycle again for 4, 5, 6 minutes. And what actually happens is that when you exhale longer on the exhale than you do on the inhale, that compression slows down the heart rate naturally, right? So it actually slows down the heart rate over time and decreases stress within the body. And it sort of not forces, but naturally causes your body to move into a more parasympathetic, calm oriented state. It might feel challenging at first. A lot of people that have high levels of anxiety and high levels of stress, for the first 60 to 120 seconds, it's probably going to be like, oh, this is super labored and it's challenging, it's hard. But that's the point, is that you're interfering with your body, with your body's normal patterns, right? Because for most people, the more stressed they are, the more anxious they are, the faster they're breathing, right? The more unconscious they are with their breath, and the faster that they're breathing. So your breath is the first part. The second part of how you can start to de-stress is prioritizing things that are uncomfortable, but you're choosing that discomfort, right? So this is why cold immersion is a very big, there's a big push for it, because what's happening when you're doing that is you're putting your body into a natural stress state, and you are calming yourself under that duress.
Yeah.
So it's like a training ground
Oh,
for you
shit.
to actually like put yourself into a naturally stressed state, even if you just want to do a cold shower, right? If you're not like, I don't want to go jump into an Arctic, lake or river,
Sure.
just do a warm shower. And at the end of the cold shower, at the end of the hot shower, turn it to cold as you can take it for about 60 seconds. Regulate your breath, focus in on your breath, right? Because your breath's going to want to go like,
Right. You
and
do.
you're
Like
just going to
it's
want to,
shocking. And then you have
yeah,
to tell yourself to call, like you go, like
yes,
that's kind of what you do when you get that cold, because you realize you're getting out of control.
yeah. So and there's a ton of benefits to this, right? And this is,
Hmm.
there was a study that showed that just by taking a 60-second cold shower every single day, the people in this study reduced the amount of sick days that they were taking by 30 to 40% within a single year, right? So it's actually helping your body regulate. It's decreasing inflammation. It's balancing out the pH levels within your body, which is a very important thing, because the more acidic your body is, the more inflamed it is, and then the more volatile you are, right?
If you like this clip and you want to hear the whole episode, click at the bottom of your screen.